In a perfectly efficient baseline economy, capital and labor flow unimpeded to their most productive uses. These resources are allocated strictly to maximize overall output. But economies do not operate in a vacuum. The introduction of a government, or the state, creates a new node with a unique power to forcefully redirect that flow. Recognizing this power, firms and industries globally engage with government actors. Their objective is to secure specific economic benefits, leveraging the state's authority to improve or protect their own financial positions. Scholars in business management politely refer to this behavior as a non-market strategy or corporate political strategy. Economists have a more precise term for it: rent-seeking. The distinction is strict. Profit-seeking creates new wealth by providing goods the market values. Rent-seeking simply reroutes existing wealth towards specific interest groups through political pressure. By diverting finite resources from efficient uses, it strictly benefits the rent-seeker and reliably shrinks overall economic output. Despite its prevalence and the direct costs it imposes on society, this behavior rarely faces adequate public scrutiny when new policies are being drafted. By definition, rent-seeking distorts the efficient use of resources. This mathematical reality holds true regardless of the political system in which it occurs. To see how this theoretical distortion plays out in the real world, we can look at one of the most entrenched historical examples: agricultural protection. When a government decides to award subsidies to farmers to grow a specific crop, it commits public funds to that sector, immediately removing them from other areas where they could have been deployed more efficiently. Domestic agricultural industries also routinely pressure governments to institute trade protections, such as tariffs, to block foreign competition. The direct result of those tariffs is that domestic consumers pay artificially inflated prices for everyday food products, covering the margin that a free market would have erased. The ultimate outcome is a compound welfare loss imposed on the public. Taxpayers fund the subsidy, consumers pay higher prices, and the overall economy loses the efficiency it would have gained optimally. Rent-seeking is best understood as a competitive game. Multiple interest groups dedicate specialized resources to influence government players, competing directly with one another for a larger share of the pie. A common misconception assumes this systemic extraction only happens in developing nations with severely degraded institutions. In highly corrupt states, rent-seeking takes its most destructive, illegal forms: bribery, extortion, and coercion, allowing private actors to capture disproportionately massive rents. This traps developing economies in a low-level equilibrium, as limited capital continuously siphons off to rent-seekers. In advanced democracies, the behavior adapts. Rent-seekers operate within legal frameworks, utilizing official lobbying and PR campaigns to influence policy. According to economist Dennis Mueller, those groups expend just to secure the rents in the first place. Therefore, the resulting public policies rarely reflect an optimal allocation of resources. They reflect which specific interest group is most skilled at playing the rent-seeking game. For decades, both the United States and several European Union countries channeled massive government support directly to commercial airplane manufacturers Boeing and Airbus. These specific public subsidies were eventually found to be in direct violation of established World Trade Organization rules.
This raises a serious analytical question. Why were billions in public funds routed to aerospace giants instead of other companies, or put to entirely different public uses? The standard public justifications typically point to job creation or vague concepts of national interest. Yet policymakers rarely provide evidence proving these benefits outweigh the enormous financial cost of the subsidies. The alternative, data-driven explanation is that Boeing and Airbus simply executed superior non-market strategies. They successfully influenced political decision-makers in their respective jurisdictions to protect their profit margins. That the public receives so little justification for these private distributions is a testament to exactly how successful corporate political strategy can be. Beyond direct subsidies, rent-seeking frequently blocks countries from implementing the structural reforms required to modernize their economies. This is highly visible in environmental policy. Fossil fuel companies currently operate as one of the most powerful interest groups utilizing these strategies. Their specific strategic goal is to impede the regulation of greenhouse gases, ensuring that the broader context of tackling climate change does not disrupt their established status quo. These efforts have successfully derailed, stalled, and weakened proposed climate legislation, particularly within the United States. This successful regulatory capture actively damages societal welfare and strips credibility from the political institutions that allow it to happen. Evaluating these systemic flaws does not mean every interaction between a corporation and a government actor is inherently destructive. Policymakers face a massive knowledge gap. They do not possess the highly specific technical expertise required to safely regulate complex, multi-stakeholder industries on their own. There is a legitimate, necessary role for transparent information exchange. Regulators need industry data to understand the real-world implications of their laws. The imperative for democratic systems is to build mechanisms that filter out damaging rent-seeking behavior while preserving the productive interactions that maximize overall economic welfare. To solve this, well-functioning democracies must require their policymakers to explicitly calculate the costs of rent-seeking when designing new legislation. This graphic demonstrates researcher Sanjay Patnaik's three-part evaluation framework. It offers a strict mathematical approach to policy design, breaking the true cost of legislation into three distinct variables. Variable 1 evaluates a policy's inherent structural vulnerability to rent-seeking. By identifying these weak points early, legislation can be designed with strict restrictions that intentionally limit the ability of interest groups to manipulate the rules. Variable 2 requires lawmakers to calculate the direct financial costs that interest groups are expected to spend on formal lobbying and campaigns just trying to influence the policy. Variable 3 factors in the expected societal welfare loss if the rent-seeking efforts are actually successful. If a government makes a conscious choice to award economic rents, say for matters of strict national interest, these expected societal losses must be mathematically included in the true cost-benefit analysis. This framework must be paired with a secondary mechanism, vastly expanded transparency rules, and tightened disclosure laws regarding exactly how private firms engage with government actors. By expanding disclosure requirements and utilizing explicit cost frameworks, policymakers are forced to be highly sensitive to public scrutiny. It aligns corporate political strategy with what actually matters, the true economic welfare of society.